At the Tuesday, March 15th, District 518 School Board meeting, the school board approved purchase of 157 acres of land to build a potential new high school. The property along the west side of North Crailsheim Road was bought from the Votes, Walter and Norman, for $3 million at a cost of $19,108 per acre. District 518 Superintendent John Landgaard talks about the process that was a lengthy one.
Purchase agreement together. We're at the purchase agreement, and hopefully in about a month and a half we'll have the closing on that property. But we've worked through this a great deal, and we're excited to have property and a direction that's set as far as when we move forward with everything. So Mr. Lorenz worked diligently on getting this accomplished and spent a great deal of time putting this together for us. So it's a great day for Worthington and the community and trying to set a direction for the district.
Take us through the process the best that you can as far as how, obviously it's been worked on a long time, but how many potential parcels did you start with and that whole steps of finding this is the one that makes the most sense? Well,
back probably 4 or 5 years ago, we started looking at 10 different pieces of property, and the city, Dwayne Hatfield, did a look at all those and wrote up a great report on how the different properties may function within the city dynamics and infrastructure. And so we used that as a guideline way back 4 or 5 years ago in trying to narrow what we needed to do, and we finally whittled it down to 2-3 pieces of property that might work for the future of the district and facilities. Of course, it's not just trying to deal with the enrollment, it's dealing with aging pieces of our infrastructure, which would be potentially soccer, or the fact that now we have to address gymnastics due to a change in ownership. So there's a lot of moving pieces that continually go on with this whole search. And as we narrowed it down, it looked like some type of corridor on the west side of Worthington was the best piece of property for us. And we started looking at those pieces of property and trying to fit that together. So,
and what about how to move forward with the process then, as far as it has to go to a vote, the building part of it does, and the dynamic of owning the land before the voting and all of those schematics? How was that discussion?
Well, typically what happens is not every school is in the position to have the property prior to, proposing a building bond. Sometimes that becomes part of the whole bond itself. We're fortunate that our school board has made decisions to put us in the position to be able to have the property ahead of putting anything out to the voters for a facility. And so that's the nice avenue. We can actually now own the property. It's taken care of and doesn't have to be part of the request for a bond, which would then also be a long-term cost to taxpayers. So that piece of the puzzle is already taken care of and will be paid for prior to any bond being proposed to the public.
In the parcel, we're talking about 157 acres right along North Crailsheim Road on the west side of the road there, owned by the Votes, Walter and Norman, $19,108 per acre, $3 million total price. And that dollar amount is from a reserve fund, or how does that move out?
Yeah, actually, about 2 years ago, the school board made the designation to put money in an assigned account for capital expenditures, and it was really identified for, at that time, land purchases. So that money's been sitting aside. Of course, you kind of just take a shot in the dark of how much you want to put in there, but fortunately, we were pretty close to right on target of what we put away for purchase of property. And that's worked out well. And again, like I said, the board has been very diligent in planning, trying to move forward, and identifying where some of those major expenditures are.
So what's the next step in the building process?
Well, yeah, we're kind of on a tight timeline right now, Matt. We will be meeting with 4 different architects here by the end of the month, trying to establish who the architect firm will be. Of course, at that point, we have to also put together a review and comment for the Department of Ed to review and give their blessing to move forward. Likewise, there will be a couple of public meetings we got to get put together because we do want public input of what this project will look like. It might be a high school with soccer fields, with whatever. We need to know what the public wants as part of that facility. And so as we move forward, that's going to all have to happen by probably the August school board meeting, where in August we have to have finalized that we're actually going to take this to a bond election. It'll probably happen sooner than that, but that's the deadline that we have to have by state law. So it's all going to start to move really quick, and there's a lot of work to get done, and things will get really active.
So the ultimate deadline now is the November general election when the question will be on the ballot.
That's the kind of the self-imposed. It could move back to the fall. The difference between an operating and a bond election is you can hold a bond election pretty much any time except those blackout dates, and you can do it more than once during a year. And you also can do a mail ballot versus everybody has to show up. So there is different approaches to deal with this, and again, our enrollment continues to grow. It's projected to grow, and by the year 2025, we're supposedly pushing that 4,000 student mark. I actually talked to somebody who works in the hospital, and they shared that they've been having about 50 births a month. When you figure that out, that's 600 babies a year. Just rough numbers, but that's kind of a scary number, particularly when we've been having about somewhere between 400 and 450 births a year. So even if it's high, you can back that down. You're still looking almost 100 more children each year.
And no space.
Well, and for us, that's the challenge right now. It isn't just the classroom spaces. It's those ancillary spaces that we're really struggling with in some of our facilities, which are the gymnasiums, the kitchens, those extra programming that support the overall operation of the district.
District 518 Superintendent John Landgaard in studio this morning, District 518 School Board meeting last night. And I wanted to go back to a work session that was held a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, when discussion was around property and purchases, and there was reference to another potential purchase of a facility or space, or I don't know, is there anything new on that or anything more that we can update on that?
There really isn't at this point. The board needs to sit down and make a determination on whether they want to consider that or not. There needs to be some serious discussion of, is this a facility we're going to take a look at purchasing or not? They have some concerns with it. Part of it comes to, if we do this to meet the needs of some of our programs, how it's going to affect the bond, and we're kind of unfortunately in the position we have to make some moves to address enrollment, and again, in all scenarios, the West Learning Center becomes decommissioned and non-used, and that's something way back in 2000, when the elementary was built, they talked about decommissioning it, and unfortunately due to the enrollment growth, we haven't been able to move out of that. And it's a very active, very busy building, and I don't want to go back and live in the past, but it is a facility we need to get out of. So there's all those moving parts, and how any potential future project's not only going to affect the bond, but also how it's going to affect that various programming.
That's District 518 Superintendent John Landgaard recapping the March 15th school board meeting in which the district approved the purchase of 157 acres of land for $3 million, buying the property from Walter and Norman Vogt for $19,108 per acre. The property in Worthington along the west side of North Crailsheim Road.